Good evening and thank you for stepping into the Foul Playland. As always, I'm your Foul Player. Making this video regarding the news that the PBC isn't recognizing the WBO as a major belt. And I wanted to discuss that in depth and give my opinion on it because I've mentioned stuff alluding to not just the WBO but other belts in the past. I guess there was a falling out between. I'm assuming that there was a falling out between the WBO and or the PBC. A lot of the WBO historically are guys that are on the top rank side of the spectrum when it comes to boxing, and it's always been rumored or not even rumored. It's always been felt that Bob Arum has a lot of pull with the WBO, and a lot of strange things happen with the WBO designating top rank fighters with mandatories or important fights or just strange stipulations and standards for fighters that are either fighting for the top rank side or against the top rank side. So with that being said, I as far as it concerns PBC and Al Haymon, I think that it's actually a good move in the sense that, you know, when you always have that thorn on your side and you have somebody like Bob Arum, who's known to be slick and known to be mischievous, you know, it's a power move. You know, it hasn't been done before by anybody as far as a promotional outfit or whatever you consider the PBC. But I'm all for it. You know, just in the sense of eliminating Bob Arum from the equation, to be frank. You know, I have nothing against ESPN, with the exception of the fact that they're associated with Bob Arum. If they want to keep that belt on ESPN, I guess that's fine. You know, if you're a PBC hater or a fighter who's represented by PBC, or i.e. Deontay Wilder, Errol Spence, the Charlo brothers, you know, which there's there's loads of haters when it comes to the names I just mentioned and other fighters that fight in the PBC. You'll be hard pressed to try to make a case that, you know, the WBO is the end all be all when it comes to belts, when there's 3 other belts that are floating around out there. But and I'm not one of these people that gives one belt more precedence than the other. I mean, and if I had to choose which belt, well, actually, no, I do give the I take that back. I do give the WBC a little bit more precedence, just based on like the history of that belt and how long it's been around. But what I meant to say is that I don't think that any of these belts are not corrupt. You know, they're all sleaze bags to me. Like, you know, I think the Suleimans in the WBC are assholes. I think whoever the fuck represents the WBO are assholes. But you know, it's a little bit dangerous when you're down to do corrupt shit for an individual time and time again, or for Top Rank, or for Bob Arum time and time again. And Bob Arum is sleazy without the help of the WBO. When you give him, when he has the WBO in his pocket, I mean, that's dangerous. It could cock block a chance at unifying forever, like with any division. I mean, like, not like, you know, doing this in the case of Wilder, or because I love, you know, I'm a big Wilder fan, but this could be applicable with any division, any fighter. Like as far as Bob Arum being a hurdle when it comes to unifying if he has the WBO on his side so vigorously. What I do hope that happens, and what I'm kind of seeing is already happening, is the networks kind of trying to, maybe snatch up the belts as bad as they can. This has always been happening, where Showtime was trying to snatch belts, and HBO was trying to snatch up belts, especially like in the latter years of HBO. There was always that feeling that a fight wouldn't happen because this fighter was on HBO and he had a belt, and like that guy was on Showtime, and they didn't want to let that belt go to that side or this side, and that sucks. Hopefully, these other commissions take notice and they play fair. Or if not, I mean, I think that they should do away with all those belts. I always dreamed and I always talked about, and it would have been cool if Wilder would have done it, for a champion to have all 4 belts and throw them into the shredder and make a ceremony about it, make it a real WWE event, and say, I'm not fucking with any belt no more. You want to beat me, and become the champion, then that's that. Like, you're going to be the champion after you beat me. Fuck the belts. And have one, that'll make it to where there's one champion for the rest of the time. But where it would be cool on the PBC side would be like, if there was just one champion, you don't have a fighter holding you over the barrel, threatening to like go fight on another network and leaving that belt at that other network. And I think that sort of happened with Keith Thurman and Manny Pacquiao. I think Keith Thurman didn't want to fight anybody but Manny Pacquiao as a cash grab, and maybe he threatened PBC or Al Haymon that he would go fight Bud Crawford and get his ass kicked by him and dump that belt off with top rank ESPN. Who knows? But I mean, I could make a whole separate video about that. Do I think something like that happened? Absolutely. I think that's exactly what happened, to be frank. So you don't have a fighter having that much clout, if you will, when it comes to negotiations, especially in a case like that where I think Keith Thurman avoided a bunch of fights and got paid out. Now Manny Pacquiao may do the same shit. Who knows? So you don't want like a fighter holding a network over the barrel, especially when it's to avoid like good competition, or a good fight being made. Fuck that. And I think a lot, like, you would have less and less of that if there were no fucking belts. Fuck the belts. And like a lot, like those people who oversee these belts are down for corruption, because if you think about it, they're not making big money. You talk about like 1% or 2% or 3%. Let's say if they're making 3% of $100 million fight, that's $3 million. I mean, it's a lot of money, but not every fight's $100 million fight. In fact, most fights are a lot less than $100 million fights. These fighters in big fights are making purses of $3 or $4 million. Like on a big fight. That's a bullshit amount of money. I think you who's listening to this video, next year you could come up on fucking 3 or 4 million by working for it. Fucking investing. So it's not like a crazy amount of money. So if somebody's willing to offer you, per se, $2 million or some shit, which I mean is on the high end, I think, and you're probably bringing in fucking, on a bad year, what, $10 million? I think you'd be inclined to do whatever the fuck that person who's offering $1 million tells you to do. And these belts are based outside of the U.S., which is funky in itself. And you've seen instances where people go over the top, like the WBO, like hard body goes over the top for the WBO. But yeah, let's try to eliminate these belts. I mean, it'd be kind of cheesy if they were like a PBC title, but fuck it, like do what you do. Like I mean, like I just think it should be eliminated altogether. I mean, and if you think about it, if there's a PBC champion, it's kind of saying something, because I mean, like the PBC seemingly has more fighters than everybody else combined. It is what it is. I mean, like and I think it couldn't happen to worse people than fucking the WBO and the people that are in charge of the WBO. And it's funny too, because about a year ago, I asked in a Fanon stream, and if you're not familiar with Fanon, please go check him out. It's Fanon Boxing. He comes on every afternoon. And I asked in the chat, like, because they were having a conversation similar to this, and it wasn't even about the WBO. It was just about belts in general, as to which, and I asked Fanon which commission he thought was the most corrupt, and immediately, he came out with the WBO. Because I mean, historically they always done funny style stuff, man. Like this is not a new thing. So being that the consensus is that they all operate a little funky, the WBO and WBC and whatever have you, fucking do away with all of them, man. Like fuck them. Like that's all for me. And I mean, like, another point too, like, as far, like, before I bounce, like, with this whole thing with Dillian White that just happened, with him having a positive test for a banned substance, and that fight still being allowed to be made. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure the WBC maybe subcontracted the UK, whatever the fuck, drug testing, whatever that have you, to do the drug test for his fights against his fight against Revis. Were they privy to that positive test for a banned substance that UCAS, that's the name, administered? I'm not sure. Should they have known at the very least? Fuck yeah. Did they know? If they did, I mean, that's fucked up. They still allowed the fight to go on. And I'm pretty sure that Dillian White is not the mandatory challenger at this time, based on the positive result for a banned substance. But the fight still went on. They probably let the fight go on, like, because that's a couple $100,000 or a couple in the $90,000 or whatever have you. Five digits, $1,000 that they didn't want to let go, and they let that shit go on. Fucking risking Revis getting injured, in spite of what happened to Mad Max the night before, like, where he unfortunately passed based on, like, the damage that he took in the ring. And I hope he rests in peace and his family's doing well. But all these things aren't necessary. I mean, just on the danger factor, like, where these people who are not huge corporations and conglomerates and aren't motivated by money have a say into how long a fighter gets suspended and which fighters they allow to fight and which ones they let, like, pass. Like, they're all fucked up, and I think we think about them as if they're based out of these huge buildings, like, fucking with these huge round tables. Like, I remember they said, I think one of the commissioners, it might have been the WBC, that they were gonna come up with, like, who was gonna be the mandatory for a bunch of shit, or just discuss, like, stuff that they needed to discuss within that particular conference, which I think was the WBC. And they said they were gonna have a meeting over a weekend a few months ago, to decide something. I think it may have been to do with Canelo and who is his mandatory and a bunch of other shit. And I think people envision them, you know, like in this fucking nice corporate office. That shit was probably done in 2 adjoining rooms in a hotel. It may have been done in 1 fucking room. Who knows? Like they probably fucked some hookers and, you know, got the room on fucking Priceline or Travelocity and fucking you know, the whole shit probably costed them a couple $1,000 to fly everybody out there, like 3 or 4 people maybe. You know, 2 of them probably were cousins or family members. And you know, we're envisioning them like fucking these huge fucking deals that are probably being corrupted for loads and loads of money. It's probably not loads and loads of money because these people aren't bringing in loads and loads of money, and that just makes them more ripe for corruption. Fuck the belts. Fuck every belt. You know, including the WBC. Fuck the WBC too. Like, I'm not caping for no fucking Suleiman WBC. They could fucking kiss ass too. Like, get rid of all of them, and I think that'll make boxing a more riveting sport and set things in order. And I'm glad that PBC is at the forefront of that. Like, hopefully they these other belts take note or fucking get lost. And that's all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you could, like, subscribe. Shout out to the entire LBBC, and I'm out.